Do you have a diastasis? Sometimes called a DRAM or a DRAM. The diastasis recti is to do with those deep tummy muscles and the separation that occurs through the linea alba, the fascial line that is through the center of the body and the center of your abdominals. So we know that we separate, and it's said that about possibly 100% of women have some separation. It's really quite understandable, isn't it? It's like our six-pack turns into like a six of champagne. You know, we separate out, that tummy is so full. And it compromises our core stability, but our body can bounce back. We know that in the first 6 weeks, the body does the most healing on bringing both sides of our tummy muscles together. So we have our corset muscles are our deepest layer, our transverse abdominis muscles. They are in fact woven like corset muscles, and they are wrapping in this way. They tighten our waist this way. They help us breathe in and out, so connected to our autonomic nervous system. They're our postural muscles. They're the deepest layer. And then we have our obliques, our inner obliques and external obliques. They're involved in posture as well. All of our muscles do help, but they're our rotational muscles and our side bending muscles as well, those obliques. And then we have the rectus abdominis muscles on top, our six-pack. They bend us forwards and backwards. They're in extension right now, and now they're in flexion as I bend forwards. So these muscles all can have that separation. They've got two sides to them with the linea alba running down the midline. Now, when we have separated through pregnancy, we are working all of those layers of muscles, particularly those corset muscles to wrap back in this way, the oblique muscles to shorten this way, and those rectus muscles, which may be stretched this way from pubic bone to ribs, everything then coming back down and realigning and getting our proprioceptive system, which is the way that our body senses itself, to actually shorten through that midline, coming back to a nice contracted, kind of like I'm coming back to myself feeling. Now I recommend, as do other postpartum doulas, that you wear a tubie grip, or you'll find as you're coming out of your postpartum for the first 2 weeks, physiotherapists recommend this as well as gold class, to actually feel like you're getting support for the heaviness of all of those displaced organs and the weight of those muscles. They're going back in, but there is no research to show that this is going to assist necessarily in bringing the tummy muscles back together, but it gives you comfort to get around the home. It gives you comfort to feel a little less unstable through your center midline. So everything is going to have some support to come back in. But remember, when we're talking about a DRAM or a diastasis recti, a separation of the tummy muscles opening this way and creating a gap in that midline, we've lost tension through the muscles and through the midline of those abdominals. We want to now work to draw that back in by using our abdominal muscles, and that's why even though those tubie grips may be supportive, we still need to have our body moving every day to start to switch those muscles back on over time. Certainly after your first couple of weeks, you could then start to bring in a little bit of active bracing through your tummy muscles. And into your 6 weeks, you can start to be activating through the pelvic floor and working with some bracing to help support you and learn get those neurological pathways firing again to start to support yourself, because you do start to get active even just walking around and looking after baby. After your 6 weeks to 10 weeks, depending on whether you've had a cesarean section, then you're going to become a little bit more active and a little bit more aware of how much work it might need for you to actively bring those tummy muscles back online and work with reducing a separation. So after baby around that 6 week mark, you're going to start to consider, do I still have a separation? My body's done the natural healing, the womb's shrunk back into place, and your body has started to repair from the soft tissue trauma and doing more of that healing work. But then what do you need to continue to get your core muscles back online? Well, let's do a self-check together now. I've got another video on this. But what does it look like? Let's bring ourselves to lie on our back with our knees bent and find a nice release of the belly and the pelvic floor. You can in fact just check what's it like when you don't switch on your muscles. And you'll find that your tummy probably pushes out as you lift your head. So what we want to consider is when we consciously engage our muscles, how much tension can we create through the abdominals, and is there a separation between the bellies of those muscles through that center? And we measure it in fingers. So finding a bit of tension like we've been working on, exhale, we find a scoop and lift of the pelvic floor. We feel the tension coming in through the corset muscles and the abdominals. Let's look up and look between the knees and then start to feel. Let's use our fingers, finding a bit of pressure through that midsection and taking a press through to see how is the tension between both bellies of those muscles. Can we find a space? Now I still have my biggest space at my belly button point. We're looking for space and we're looking for what tension we might feel. It feels a bit ropier if you've got some tension through the midline. You might feel that there is a greater separation all the way up towards your ribs. So sometimes we see the separation in the upper abdominals, sometimes we see it closer to the belly button, sometimes we see it lower. And when that builds into different weaknesses through the abdominals. Now, if you're taking time to do this, as you can see, you're welcome to put your hands behind your head and consider and look as well, giving yourself a visual of what's going on and giving yourself that tactile sensation of the fingers through the midline and that gap. Now, if you are over 2 fingers, if you're 3 finger with a gap, we definitely recommend you go and see a physiotherapist, a physical therapist, a pelvic health physiotherapist to support you in your journey back to a optimal core that can take load, and this can be an additional adjunct to the exercises that have been specifically designed for you. When you do have that separation through the muscles, we have to be very careful not to increase abdominal pressure, which separates those belly muscles even more. So we want to be taking those tummy muscles and increasing the pressure inwards into the midline, as I've been talking about, with those corset muscles wrapping in this way and those rectus muscles coming in and oblique muscles coming in to find more closure coming in this way, rather than overloading the core and it starts to push out and we put more pressure into those bellies of the muscle, both sides of the bellies, separating out rather than coming back in. So make sure you're taking your core just to the load point where it stays inwards. Some people would say that if you do have a DRAM or diastasis recti, if you do have that separation of the abdominals, maybe you want to stay less in your twists. So twists are going to pull those abdominals a little bit apart. If you're twisting too far in particular, you can absolutely take gentle twists. Be mindful of your return. Be mindful of that range as you twist. You absolutely are staying away from anything that's increasing greatly intra-abdominal pressure. So lifting heavy weights, taking yourself into hard exercises like planks. So taking yourself into something that is, you're going like, oh, I should be able to do I should be able to do a half plank by now. But then your tummy muscles just release out and bulge and pooch, and it goes into your lower back. So you need to find the variations that work for you. Come back to your 4-point kneel. Really work the nice, strong pull against gravity. So stay with the variations that support your DRAM, and that can give you that load that is going to continue to build and progress you up into the sorts of exercises that you would like to get to, but just take it step by step.